Hello everyone. Good evening. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to my channel. You have probably noticed a change of setting. It is winter and I'm starting to diversify my content. So I figured out if I want to talk about books, I want to be in this place in my living room. So I think this is going to be my book spot. At the moment, I might change my mind. You never know with me, but this is where I'm going to be today. Anyways, yes, this is winter. We're gonna have to get through it. This is absolutely not my favorite season, and actually, it's not even winter, it's actually autumn. But autumn here is so cold that for me, it's the pre-winter for me. So yeah, it's winter. It's November, but next month is December, so I'm happy. I like December. Today was one of these days where I came back from work. I was exhausted. The energy wasn't there, and I was like, I don't want to record this video. But the minute I sat down, the minute I read through my notes, the energy came back. And anyways, when you have a passion, drive comes naturally. So the minute I sat down, I look at my notes, the passion was back, the energy was back. So here I am. It was one of these evening where I felt like, I don't know if I can do it today. But once I started, I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. So welcome back to episode 2 of my love series. Today we're going to talk about a key character of this novel. We are talking about this novel, Love from Toni Morrison, first published in 2003. And today we're going to focus on the enigmatic, mysterious character called Elle. Like, this character doesn't even have a full name. Her name is literally the letter L. So that's her name. That's how we're going to call her for this discussion. And I'm excited. So this book, this novel, it's a really, really deep, complex, puzzling novel. So, just as a quick summary, this novel takes place in a fictional town on the east coast of the United States called Silk. We have the two protagonists, Hit the Knight and Christine, who are living, strangely enough, they are living in the same house, but they totally despise each other. They hate each other. They are literally fighting over inheritance, and they are expressing a disturbing obsession over a dead man called Bill Cosy. So, as a reader, when we start reading, we wonder what happened. Why do these two women who hate each other have to live together? How is Bill Cosy related to both women? What is the root of this obsession? And what led them to hate each other? And most importantly, who is right and who is wrong? That is one of the biggest questions that arises when we read this novel. So I definitely feel like, for me, the challenge as a reader when we read this novel, as we progress through the plot, is to form our opinion and trying to find out who is wrong, who is right. Because, as readers, we always try to have our favorite character, we always try to, give judgments, but it's very hard in this book to find out who is on the right side of the story and who is on the wrong side of the story. And what makes it more interesting is that, in Toni Morrison's novels, characters are never flat. They're complex, they are deep. There is this duality in Toni Morrison's characters that is really, really enjoyable and thought provoking. So, as a reader, we are trying to find out who tells the truth, who is right, and are the memories of all characters reliable? That's a big thing. This novel presents a lot of challenges for us as readers, and you will understand why this character, Elle, comes to save the day for us readers. Another challenge while we are reading this book is the plots. The way the plot is structured. The plot is non-linear. There are a lot of flashbacks, there are a lot of memory recollections, and the events that are narrated span from more or less 1930 to 1990. So we have a 60 years window to occupy us during the novel, and we have 60 years that we have to try to understand to see how did these two women end up in this situation. So the question and the challenge is, how can we make sense of key events and place them in a sensible timeline as readers, with the very few elements we have and with the contrasting stories of different characters, because they all have different perspectives about what happened. So we need to see who can we believe and how can we place these events in a timeline that makes sense. How can we recollect all these elements to make sense of our reading? And this is a big thing in Toni Morrison's novel, The Toni Morrison. So this is essentially what Toni Morrison does. She wants to keep the readers engaged. She wants to make this reading experience almost participatory. She wants to get us to work while we are reading. So this is a really positively challenging process, and that's why I have always loved reading Toni Morrison. And one of the biggest philosophical questions in this novel, just here, is, where does truth reside? Is truth always fully objective, or is there a bit of subjectivity in truth? Toni Morrison also beautifully make us think about can be the way truth can be distorted or magnified or embellished through the lenses of personal values, culture, history, or even community codes, and so many other things. Regarding the question of truth, in this novel, this is where Elle comes to become a key to open the door and help us unravel so many of the secrets and the answers. The character Elle comes as a key character to help us open the door and widen our understanding. That is pure improvisation. Let me rephrase it. That's where Elle becomes a key character that helps us open the door to truth and healing, opening the door to the possibilities of truth and healing for Hit the Night and Christine. That is pure improvisation. I hope this sounds good. Anyways, you get it. This character, L, helps us pave the way toward truth, because this is actually hazardous in this novel. Things get a bit, tricky and hazardous for us as readers. So Elle, as a character, she's really helpful. She's like, um she becomes quite like a narrative frame. She helps us make sense of the plots of different events that took place, and she's a reliable character. So not only does she help us untangle the messy web of um, misunderstandings and unspoken rancor, but she's also helping us untangle the web of complex relationships in the cozy family. So, overall, through her intriguing narrative voice, Elle helps us unpack what really happened for Hit the Night and Christine to end up hating each other to this degree, to this level. So yeah, she's really crucial in helping us unpacking what happens, the real plot, the real deal. So Elle narrates several sections in this novel. Every time she's narrating, you will notice, because her passages are in italics, so that creates a clear, can you see? that creates a clear demarcation between the narrative of the different characters and when Elle is narrating. It's really a way to highlight her voice and to emphasize her importance as a narrator in this novel. So clearly, as a narrator, she holds the keys to several mysteries in this novel. So for this video, hopefully it doesn't last 2 hours. This is the plan. Part one is going to be a discussion about the importance of Elle for us readers, how she helps us through the book. Part two is going to be her role as a narrator. Part three is going to be us focusing a little bit more on the character itself, and we're going to have a look at Elle as a woman. Okay, we're going to explore her womanhood, who she is as a woman within the novel. And finally, we're going to ponder on this question: was Elle a savior in this novel? Once again, for this book discussion, it is very hard to discuss it with some degree of depth without spoiling. If you have read the book, please make yourself comfortable. Oop. And if you have read the book, please make yourself comfortable. Go grab a cup of tea or a nice warm blanket, or I don't know, whatever you decide. But let's get comfortable and let's talk about books. As I said, I'm going to try to make sure this video is not 2 hours long, and it's a real challenge for me. I am so enthusiastic about books and music and all these things. But anyway, part one: why is Elle so important and useful for us as readers? How does she help us unravel the mysteries and the entangled lies about Bill Cozy? Does it make sense? I hope it does. So, as I said, the narrative style in this novel is really complex, is non-linear. We have a lot of flashbacks, we have different perspectives, so one single event can be recollected in different ways. Or in other words, characters will express how they have perceived the same event, and you will see that their version is not the same. So you're going to ask yourself, who is lying and who is telling the truth? What is what? Like what's going on? And to this, you have to add the fact that there are information gaps and countless jumps into the timeline. So reading this book, I mean, I have to tell you, when I read this book, I had to take so many notes, and I had to read it several times to make sure I understood what was really going on. But it was highly enjoyable. It's really one of my favorite reads, although it's quite dark. But it's really enjoyable and really challenging, but also emotionally challenging, also humanly challenging, because it deepens your understanding of what it means to be human. I mean, this is Toni Morrison. This is Toni Morrison. Anyways, also said previously, this book mentions events that span from 1930 to 1990. So it's a lot to cover. So we can get a bit confused. It can be a bit perplexing. That's why we need a character like Elle, who comes up with the facts, with the data, with the truth, and who is trying to get us together. Elle is also important in helping us deciphering what the characters are really explaining, deciphering their emotions, and she helps us understand the truth a little bit more. All the characters in this novel had a different relationship with the infamous Bill Cozy. So as reader, we really have to make meaning of all these different perspectives about Bill Cozy. And we have to dig for the truth. And when you think about the truth, you may think it's an evident concept, like it's an easy concept. The truth is the truth. This is what is true. But as a concept, the truth is not so easy as it seems. Just think about an easy fact. As human beings, if you think about physiology, our senses are limited. So, what we see from the world doesn't always relate to the truth because our vision is limited. The typical human visual range doesn't allow us to see some waves, like we cannot see infrared, we cannot see ultraviolet. Our human eye can only see a small section of the electromagnetic spectrum, and other things like with our human eye, we cannot see bacteria, although we are surrounded by bacteria everywhere. But because we don't see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So we cannot always rely on our senses to define what is true and what is not. So the truth is not as evident as a concept, and in human history, more recently, our perception of truth has been correlated to science, what we understand from the world to base our truth. We also need to think about the fact that every individual sees and experiences reality through different filters, such as past experiences, knowledge, education, environment, mental states, emotional states, physical states. So, all these filters can influence your perception of the truth. So yeah, truth is a big concept, and Toni Morrison really wants to make us think more deeply about the meaning of truth. As easy as it sounds, truth is not an easy concept at all. It's actually such a puzzling, layered concept that I will not have time to explore in this video today. Broadly speaking, we tend to categorize truth under different categories. The most common categories are subjective truth, so the truth that you experience or your perception of truth, objective truth, and normative truth. But yeah, when you look closer, understanding what truth is not that simple. Every single character carries their own memories, their own perceptions, their own opinions, and their own pain. So, in this novel, for the characters, truth quickly becomes something very personal, almost emotional rather than factual. And this is where Elle, the character, is really, really critical in our understanding of the truth or what happened for real. You will see that, for instance, um, the duo, the mirroring duo, Christine and Hit the Night, they remember the same past but with completely different lenses, completely different emotions, completely different positions. So, really, what Toni Morrison does is not so much asking us who tells the truth, who holds the truth, which character has the better version of the truth, but really, she makes us understand and makes us realize how fragile the truth can be and how complicated, how messy the truth can be. And Toni Morrison, the genius that she is, I just realized it how because I read a lot of her novels now and I'm starting to realize how she makes us understand that truth is so easily distorted, and a lot of times the truth that is, I mean, the version of truth or the version of history that is conveyed is often um, about power and about deciding whose stories deserve to be told, whose stories deserve to be heard, um, and whose stories deserve to be valued and given some type of validity, you know? Yes, very, very deep questions. Very, very insightful. Very, very deep and insightful questions for us readers. Let's be mindful of the time. So, yeah, Elle, the woman, She is presented to us as a wise character with very high moral standards. So she's a bit like the unseen observer of things. She stays in her corner. She's quiet, but she sees everything. She doesn't say much, but she can see things, and she doesn't play about things because she has high standards, high moral standards. So she's like the observer, and she's a bit like the keeper of the memory. So she helps us follow the threads of events. She helps us follow the thread of the plot, and she helps us weave out some truth in this novel. Her narration really traces the road, it really guides us through this complex situation between Kid the Knight and Christine, because it seems like most characters have distorted memories, or not really distorted, not all the time distorted, but they are all very biased. They are all talking about their own experience without taking the necessary, without doing the necessary mental and emotional work of taking a step back to see things with a wider perspective. They're really self-centered when they are exploring the past and when they are forming their version of the truth. So that's the importance of L for us readers, helping us making sense of the plot, helping us making sense of key information, and helping us putting the pieces together to find the truth. Now, let's talk about Elle as a narrator, and let's talk about her authoritative position as a narrator, because as I told you, Little Miss Elle has her own passages in different fonts, letters in italics. Please excuse us, Elle. As a narrator, I have to say she's quite a pleasant narrator because of Toni Morrison's writing style. The character of Elle, through her narration, adds melody, she adds a rhythm to the novel. Her passages are really, really melodious. It's like, as she says, she hums in the background. She's silent, but she's present. So she's silent in the sense that, like, there's a double entendre. She's silent because in most of the scenes, she doesn't do much. Okay, the novel is really centered around the actions of Hit the Night and Christine and Junior and Roman and how they get on and what happened to them. And Elle really intervenes during her narration. Although she was a big part of Bill Cosey's Seaside Resort, she seems to be a background character, but that's before she intervenes to tell us what really happened. She did a lot behind the scenes. I liked reading her parts because of the prose. It was like a breath of fresh air away from the heavy confrontational, the heavy situation between Hit the Night and Christine, which was very dark. And I felt like um, the passages where Elle is narrating felt a bit lighter. Not that the subject matter was lighter, but is the way her narration is constructed that makes it really enjoyable and lighter. Now, something that is really interesting is that when Elle is narrating, we don't really know whether she is alive or if she is dead. And we can make some connections with Toni Morrison's earlier novel, Beloved. This is something to think about. I will not explore it more in the video because I'm conscious of the time, but this is a very interesting parallel. These characters that are between life and death. And at the end of the book, we do have a better understanding on whether Elle is alive or not. Now, as a character, Elle is really mysterious, but she's a crucial witness, and her recollections helps us progress toward a better understanding of the plot and of the truth. because, as I said, she's a wise woman. She sees a lot. Everybody trusts her. So, when there's someone that you trust, you tend to do everything and anything in front of them. You are your natural self. So she has seen everyone in their natural elements. So she knows the real deal about all these people. And in particular, Bill Cozy. She's one of the character who knows Bill Cozy the most, with Sanders. She really had this privileged position with Bill Cozy as the one who knew him the most. I mean, one of the characters who knew him the most, because she has known him for the longest. She had known him since she was 5 years old, and she ended up working in his hotel resort, and she was his right hand woman. So they really had a close bond, so she can boast the fact that she knows him deeply. She also has a close relationship with other characters. She was May's confidant. She acted as a surrogate mother for Christine. She was a mentor and a strong support system for Hit the Night. So you can see her central place in this novel and for the main characters. So that makes her a reliable character. That makes her like a certified character. So we know we can trust her. We can trust what she says about the other characters and the events she are mentioning. We know we can trust her because she had this privileged position with the other characters. And she witnessed a lot of things with clarity. She always made a point to remain fair and objective in different situations. So she witnessed May's descent into madness. She witnessed the destruction of the bond between Hit the Night and Christine. She witnessed true love between Bill Cozy and his first wife. So she knows that Bill Cozy is capable of really loving someone. So that's a perception that she has, and maybe other characters didn't get to see or to experience. So you get it. She has deep, truthful connections with the other characters, and she has seen a lot. So, as a narrator in this complex mosaic of perspectives, Elle is definitely the closest thing to the truth as a character. So, you see how important she is for us as readers. But then again, we still have to take it with a grain of salt because, Toni Morrison always reminds us that nobody's perfect. We are human and we can fail. What Elle says has to be taken with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, as hard as she tries to be just and fair, she is also subjective. So, yeah, she's wise, she is regarded with respect, she's more knowledgeable than others, but she's also biased. She's human. So, yeah, we have to keep this in mind as readers, but as we evolve through the novel, we can clearly see the humanity in Elle. So we appreciate that she helps us unravel and untangle the web of misinterpretations. But we are also reminded that she is human. That makes it a beautiful, enjoyable, um, thought provoking reading experience. And one big thing about Elle being a human being and her having high moral standards but still being human is the fact that although she wants to stick to the truth, at some point she kind of toys with the truth. She kind of rewrite history, if you know what I mean. Um, Not so much because she wants to falsify history, but because of her innate or deep sense of justice. So yeah, I was really impressed with the complexity of characters and the complexity of concepts that are evoked in this novel. So amazing. I did talk about spoiling, but I'm actually going to try not to spoil. Um, I'm gonna try. Let's see how Let's see how well I managed to do this up till the end of the video. I'm trying not to spoil, to still give a chance to readers that I haven't read the book. Okay. Part three. Elle, the woman. Who is she as a woman? We really don't know what she looked like. To be fair, now that I think about it, I have no idea what she looks like. I don't remember reading any type of physical descriptions about her. So yeah, she's really a ghost-like figure, yet very central to our plot. As a woman, she is first introduced as a voice. I think it does emphasize the mystery around her and the fascinating aspect around her character. But she's seen as a voice, a wise, melodious voice in the background. We have access to her thoughts. She seems really wise. She seems to be quiet. She seems to be more mature than others. She seems to be strong-willed, and she appears to be, silently judgmental. These type of people who don't say much, but you can see that they're silently judging you. From the corner of their eye. They're not saying much, but you can see they've been judging you. She seems to be that type of person, not necessarily out of malice, but mostly because that's the norms she has adopted. If you've watched one of my previous videos about the novel, I talk about the impact of patriarchy on the female characters of the novel, and Elle seems to have adopted some patriarchal ideals, and at times, as a reader, we wonder if she actually exhibits a bit of internal misogyny. So she is a complex character. In spite of this, at times she endorses the roles of the savior, the mother, um, the confident, um, and even at times the protector, a role that Bill Cozy was supposed to take. But at the end, it's really Elle who acts um, as a protector toward these women, as a protector to these women. Perhaps not financially or materialistically, but emotionally, she's really protective of these women. She really cares about them. She really loves them in different ways. As a woman, what transpires from this book uh, and from the narrative is that she seems to have an acute sense of justice, and that's why she she acted a certain way in certain situations, trying not to spoil. And yeah, in some aspects, she was the cook at the resort. She was Bill's friend. She was like a pillar. She was keeping everything together, more or less. She has done a lot to protect the women in the house, and sometimes it does make me sad because who was looking after her? In the novel, nobody thinks really about her, like in a in a in a substantial way. Nobody really thinks about Elle, and she actually gave a lot to protect the women in the house. And although I said that she makes questionable statements that can borderline lean into internal misogyny, at some other points, she does exemplify sisterhood. So you see again the duality around characters in Toni Morrison's novels, and the world is not black or white. Things, people, situations are really complex. So yes, Elle is a complex character. Sometimes she can be sentimental, or sometimes she can have a very bitter position toward women, especially modern women, and sometimes she can have problematic opinions or adopt stances that are controversial. I mean, when I was reading some of her passages and how she was complaining about modern women, mm, it did rub me the wrong way because she was She was super critical. She was, I understand every generation has issues, but she was yeah, very critical. We can see that she really struggles to accept modernity, and that's why she decided to retreat into silence. So yes, she has this difficult relationship with modernity and modern woman. That was a bit of a problem for me. But I understand that Toni Morrison doesn't want to sell us characters that are perfect. And Elle is already doing a lot. She couldn't be perfect. She needed to have a part of herself that had to be challenged and had to be, questionable to make us see that we all have a part of ourselves to improve or to challenge. What can I add? As a woman, she's quite distant, but she's caring. She's very traditional, and yeah, she holds quite a conservative stance when she looks at how the world has evolved, and especially the situation of modern women in the 90s at the end of the 20th century. She struggles to accept changes that modernity brings, and that's why she decides to retreat into silence. For her, silence is also a form of protection, and that's a way to express how usually disappointed she is. Also, by Hit the Night and Christine, she is totally disappointed by what she has seen in Bill Cosey's family after his death. A very complex character, very different to May. May, which was the topic of episode 1 of my love series video. And this leads me to the last part of the video, which is us talking about Elle as a saving figure. So Elle, as we said, she holds herself to very high standards in terms of morality. She's a bit like the Wonder Woman of the novel, and she saves the day on many occasions. Okay, she is that girl. um, at some point, she is the peacemaker, but I believe she didn't do enough to stop the marriage. Am I spoiling here? Spoiler. All right, spoiler. At some points, I believe she didn't do enough to stop the marriage between Bill Cosey and Hit the Night. She clearly disapproved of this marriage on the grounds of morality, contrary to May, who took some time to really express her disapproval. And May was mostly worried about the image of Bill Cosey and their family. But Elle knew that it wasn't right, so she totally disapproved of this, but she didn't do enough to stop him. So I was a bit disappointed with this. I was a bit disappointed by Elle in this aspect. I felt like our Wonder Woman was falling short. And I felt like, someone should have been more vocal. Now, I understand the times and everything, but that is absolutely not an excuse. And I understand that she was trapped in a patriarchal system. I understand that Elle, as a woman, was trapped in a patriarchal system. Um, so, yeah. I do like the fact that she stood up for Hit the Night a couple of times, and she also stood up for Christine. She did act as a surrogate mother for Christine. So yes, saving figure to Hit the Night and Christine, although she could have done more to stop the marriage. So yes, we have mitigating elements. Yeah, but yeah, saving figure in these aspects, agreed. Um, saving figure as well, because when May started to lose her mind, when she started to face a lot of issues, Elle stepped in for her. She stepped in and she supported May. She made sure that when Bill died, she was retributed for what she's done for him, and she made sure May had a significant part in the will, because initially, spoiler, initially Bill left nothing for the woman in his house and in his family. So Elle had to step up, and she did step up for the girls. Elle did what she had to do to make sure the women hit the night. Christine, May did not end up destitute because in this patriarchal system, these women had nothing for themselves. They had nothing to their names. So when Bill died and he left nothing for them in the will, they ended up with nothing. So how were they supposed to survive? So that's where Elle, the character Elle, took on her cape, her Wonder Woman cape, and said, "I'm not letting this happen." So yeah, well done, Elle. So yeah, saving figure in a lot of situations, yes. And yeah, the issue is that Toni Morrison really illustrates what was happening at the time and the limited margins, the limited capacity really for women to act in a patriarchal system. So she doesn't really challenges patriarchal norms, but she sees Bill for who he is, contrary to other characters. She doesn't idolize him. She doesn't idealize him either. And as it is said, page I think it's 200. Let me go. It's at the very end of the book. Is it page 200? She sees him for who he is. She says, "You could call him a good bad man or a bad good man." Then later on, we have, "He was an ordinary man, ripped like the rest of us by wrath and love. I had to stop him. I had to." And the superwoman. So she saw him for who he was and she tried to do what she could do with the means that were available to her as a woman at the time. She's also one of the only characters who really and strongly deplores the fact that at the end of the day, the biggest regret is that Christine and Hit the Knight's relationship has been completely sacrificed because of Bill Cozy and his mistake. And it's only at the end of the book, when Hit the Night and Christine start to process their anger, their grief, when they have this deeply moving final dialogue, that's only then that they realize that they were not necessarily enemies and that they were both victims. That's when they realize the extent of their trauma. So, yes, I do believe Elle is not a perfect woman, but she helps us a lot as a character. For us as readers, she helps us a lot. This character helps us a lot. She's intriguing, she's a puzzling woman, she is interesting. She's not perfect, but yes, I do believe that she appears like a saving figure, and it's really heartwarming because this novel is quite dark. So to be fair, when I finished the book, I did feel some type of warmth toward Elle and a bit of sadness as well because she seems to be living a very lonely life. Like nobody realizes that she's here and that she's doing so much, and she's just a voice in the background. And as a woman who wants to be strong and helpful and nurturing and trying to do what's right and trying to hold your community together and being so self-sacrificing, you do so much, but people don't always realize, and you can end up like Elle in the background, being the glue that holds everything together, but not being valued, not being seen, not being, rewarded, just some type of acknowledgement, some type of support, some type of presence, but she seems very lonely. And that was sad. But I was like, oh my god, Elle, you've done all of this for Christine and for Hit the Night. You deserve a hug. You deserve a hug. Okay, so that's all for me. That's my analysis of the character of Elle. Really helpful character that allows us to really navigate through the novel, through the text more easily, and she really helps us doing, this detective work, because as I said previously in one of my videos, love can be read as a detective novel, because you're trying to find out who tell the truth, what really happened, how did we end up in this situation. We have explored the paradox of memory and the complex concept of truth, her role as a narrator, and we have explored Elle as a woman and whether she was a saving figure. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you have read this book. Also, let me know if there are any other lenses through which you see Elle, if there are any aspects of this character that you'd like to discuss more in depth. I would like to discuss with you as well, because I love to talk about books. Let me know in the comments, what did you think about Elle? Did you have a favorite character in this book? For me, it was I think the first time I read Love, my favorite character was Hit the Night. Then the second time I read Love, my favorite character was Christine. Third time I read Love, I did not have any favorite character. Although the third time I read Love, I did have a little bit more love for Christine, so I think she was my favorite. And Elle came to a close second the third time I read the book. You know what? I'm gonna read it a fourth time, and let's see if it changes. But I'm pretty sure that if I read it a fourth time, my favorite character is going to be Christine. And I have to say, another one of my favorite characters was Roman. Although he does have quite a secondary um, role, he's not one of the main characters, but he's quite an interesting character, and he was impressive for me. I love that Toni Morrison uses this character as a young black teenager to show a healthy, powerful vision of masculinity. Loved it. Wonderful character, this woman. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this video because it wasn't just a book review, it wasn't really an analysis, it was some type of reflection, some type of um, conversation, it was some type of, you know, soul work. Yes, I think I'm going to keep this for my caption. It was some type of, nice, enjoyable reflection about the character Elle. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like or to subscribe if you have enjoyed the content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm always really, really happy to discuss about books, authors, to to exchange about different perspectives. And that's it. I'm gonna finish now. You know what? I think that's one of the fastest. This video has been one of the fastest ever recorded so far. Because I've told you I'm a work in progress. That's what life is about. That's all for me. I'm sending you a lot of love, a lot of light. Look after yourselves. Stay blessed and don't forget to nourish your soul. Mwah. Bye. Take care.